man himself, Mr. Bryan S. Harris, the King. I am so grateful to have you on the show today, Bryan. You have been an inspiration in my life, and I'm sure many others as well. I want you to take a moment, introduce yourself, and we will get into this afternoon. Thank you so much again, Bryan, for taking the time out of your afternoon to join me.
Thank you for having me. One, I just want to say it's a pleasure to actually be on and be a part of your show. I always admire everything that you're doing. And I
Thank
notice all of the greatness that you do it with the intentions of greatness, everything that you do. And that is very attractive on a business level and all other ways from divinity.
you. Thank you, Bryan. So tell the world, tell our viewers a little bit about who Bryan Harris is, and what have you been up to? What are some of your keys to success in this time? But let's start with who is Bryan Harris?
Oh, okay. So if you don't, I love reciting some of the greats, but Grant Cardone, he says, if you don't know who I am, I apologize for that.
Right.
That's my fault for not getting myself more exposure. But I
Mm.
am Bryan S. Harris, and I've been known as an entrepreneur since I was about 20 years old. And I got started in entrepreneurship with the goal of, making it out of the situations that I saw as the lowest level of living. And so I went out on a quest of pursuing what I was told as a kid, which was money. And that drive led me to the highest realms of earning income that people from where I come from experience. Does that make sense? So it may not be the richest person in the world to the perception that it's given,
Mm.
but from where I come from, I'm at the pinnacle of success from the image that was given to me. And I've surpassed that eons ago. You understand? But I recognize that led me on the true purpose of my purpose, which is the discovery of my purpose, was the meaning for my always wanting to be something else. And
Wow.
so I wanted to know what was driving me. I noticed that the common denominator was not just my attention, but it was the type of fuel that I had in my tank to unconsciously endure the things that would go against me having that type of success. And so it allowed me to stay in line with truth as my base root of going into something unconsciously as I went into the world of false concepts to discover why I'm here. Huh?
So
Come on
Bryan
now.
is starting
You
us
better
off.
you better listen to me.
He's
I'm
start.
trying to tell you, I'm rocking I'm shaking up the earth with this information.
Wow.
The only reason why I do anything is to discover why I'm doing it.
Mm.
But when I realized, here's what happened. So by the time the last recession came around in 2008, I had amassed a quite amount of properties at the age of 28 years old, might I say. And
Wow.
the image, I didn't know that I was doing the impossible with one house. I had over 100 properties, had the banks at my fingertips,
Wow.
giving me properties at the lowest time of the economy as we know it. And I was 28 years old, but no teacher
Wow.
that have gotten me to this point. So they gave me all of those things, possibly with ill intentions. But shit, we can't handle it. He's gotten here at this age. Let's see if he can. So of
Right.
course, in failure, me willing to take on the crap, right, that was stinky to everybody, gave me the experience of learning the lowest level of thinking at the lowest level of the economy.
Mm.
And by me choosing to tap in to a higher source, which we call God, and from where I'm from, it
Right.
allowed me to learn how he moves. And it allowed me to discover a new realm of him in a way that I had never heard
Gave
before.
me the
And it was
experience
because
of
this type of
learning
information,
the lowest level of thinking. And,
it's echoing.
sorry about
Okay.
that.
The, this type of information had
Hmm.
never been heard before from me.
Right.
So realizing that, all right, my spirit resonates with difference, but my guiding light is the intention of the difference. You see what I'm saying? That's what pulls me further along in ignorance. So I may dive into something as deep as I need to go
Right.
and become the reason for it being and lose my concept of the definition of what I'm supposed to be in search of my intentional reason for being. You understand what I'm saying? That's the driving force. And
Okay.
when you can discover the driving force, you can overcome anything because it ain't no obstacle when there is intention, when there is reason, when there is known purpose. Okay, go ahead.
Right. So important. So very important. Now, when you say known purpose, Bryan, for those, because some people will say, I don't know what my purpose is, and what am I supposed to be in? What would you say to those people when you say no? Like, what is your meaning behind known purpose?
Known purpose only has one meaning that will make sense,
Mm,
and this should resonate once it's received. It is the only reason. So what is purpose? Purpose, woo, is the impulse in you
mm,
that you can feel. And when you get far out of touch away from that impulse, you lose your purpose. So
right.
it comes to you by way of being able to feel. And the less you can feel,
Wow.
right? The less in tune you are in feeling nature with your true self. So the further you get away from the true meaning of anything, the
Right.
feeling for it leaves. You understand? So now you can know how to identify it in a different way and not have to look to the outside world as your guiding light.
Right.
It is the leading edge of light, which makes it so magnificent to look at in all forms of divine expression that it could be. You represent the highest form of intelligence on the edge of discovering itself.
Wow.
And the
And
one thing that this most intelligent being has done is giving over the responsibility of the discovery to the things that is created. And, and that's what we call artificial intelligence. If you created artificial intelligence, it came from a creator inside you. If
right.
you don't know how you were created, so what's the thing that you should be seeking the most? Seek ye first the kingdom of heaven. Then
Mm,
all of this other stuff will be given to you in the divine expression that it needs to be given to fulfill its purpose. And the only way you will be able to continue to see it and notice it is if you look at it through a divine eye that was
mm,
already determined, even if you don't understand it. That's the only thing that will give you the breath of life. So your
it-
path
it-
of where you stand right now stands on truth. You are where you're supposed to be to represent the divine expression of intelligence in its highest form. And your forgetfulness about this causes you to ask, what's my purpose? And it's through the intelligence of knowing that will guide you to purposeful information 100% of the time with accurate
wow.
detail.
That is a powerful statement, especially based on what you and I had spoke about earlier before we went live. And, understanding that everything has a purpose, everything has a reason, everything happens for a reason. Do you believe that everything happens for a reason?
I think everything in life is intentional, and you just
Mm,
have to follow the feeling of desire, no matter what that feeling looks like in physical form,
right,
to prove that everything that you did thought was right was done out of truth, the true reason for doing it. See,
right.
when the ego steps in place, then the feeling goes away from it.
Mm,
You see what I'm saying? So people don't. Okay, so go back to Bryan. What have you done over the last 2 years? In January 2018, I decided to walk away from the conscious attention to humanity. mentally. You understand what I'm saying?
Okay.
But keeping my mental root founded as the foundational rock of this new exploration that everybody in the human race has avoided to go on a journey on. You understand? And
Right.
so it was the kingdom of heaven. If everybody's focused on the outside and the outside now looks like destruction, that means that the conscious attention feels defeated. It gives me the frequency that everybody is thinking from. And I stand above it and see it in a different way. So
Right.
when I represent light, then I represent life. You understand? So
Right.
I give life to dead situations in the mind, in the air, in the frequencies. You get what
Yeah.
I'm saying? The
Absolutely.
world of darkness, the light giver has came in the world of darkness disguised as the right thing.
Mm.
And so truth gets overlooked and has to be humbled
Mm.
again and again and again to catch the attention of people who recognize truth. It's something about that situation. It's something about that business. I don't know why I didn't take advantage of that opportunity, and I normally would have. I don't know why I gave up getting that easy money that way. I felt that there was something divine in me that had more control over a situation, and I felt divine enough for it to be presented to me in physical form in the way that I choose for it to be, and it feel right to my spirit. You
Right.
see how deep that drives with the confidence that is spoken from?
Mm.
See, I speak from a vein that's confident in itself. You see what I'm saying? I
Yeah.
just got a piece of it. So I went to the top of this Mount Everest, which caused the mental detachment of my imagery of circumstances. The worst things that could possibly happen on the journey has to appear to the mind to keep the mind in focus, to feel like it needs to look at it to survive.
Mm.
So keep your root based in the Lord, regardless of all understanding and all human logic. Put your faith in the unseen, that the way that I see it in my mind is locked in truth. And it has to appear to me in that path for me to accept it as truth. And until I see it how I see it in my mind, then no other way can be the way that was sent by the divine version of me. Woo! You see
Right.
what I'm saying?
I
That's
understand. And
confidence.
your microphone is a little muffled, just a little bit.
Ooh.
Can you
Yeah.
hear me, Brian?
So I get to, yeah, can you hear me?
I was saying your mic is a little muffled. It sounds like it's covered.
Okay, what about now?
Perfect. Much better.
All right.
Yeah.
So I can breathe deep still from that truth and feel the frequency of thinking
Mm.
of humanity when I speak from truth. Truth hears the call. Now it drives attention to this belief system. And then with this knowledge of eternal being, so I walk on the mountaintop, and then on my mountain, before I went in, my baggage I collected at the doorway of conscious separation from humanity
Okay.
was the baggage of
No, I'm listening.
was was the baggage of seeing all things divine through my eyes. You get what
Okay.
I'm saying?
I do. Now,
So
I
I
have a question.
chose.
I have a question for you, and I don't mean to interrupt. For
Go
those
ahead.
who are not familiar with who Brian Harris is, because I'm familiar with you, I've known you for some years now, and I understand exactly, where you come from and how you think and how you interpret things. What would you say to the viewers who have just met Brian Harris as far as how your feelings and how you perceive life and how you came to this point of perceiving life? Where did that begin, or has it always been? And what would you say to someone
Um,
who's
there's
just
always been a knowledge of self awareness,
Mhm.
but the reason for my self awareness allowed me to search in ignorance. It allowed me to search in false concepts of myself.
Mhm.
And so the joy and the pain of life is overridden in your mind by the divine reason for it. But how I chose to look at life, my ego had to bow down to the most divine version of how it saw life. So as I come back and shine light over the situation of my life, I get a chance to see it how I should see it.
Right.
And my choice of seeing it that way gives me conscious control over it.
Okay. And when you say your ego had to bow down, and if you could back your camera up just a little because we can't really see you, what does that when it comes to like success and what makes, Bryan Harris? And would you say that being in control over your ego is one of your keys to your success as a man, as a leader, as the king of your household? Would you say that that's one of the keys to your success is having that control over self?
Um, if that concept resonates at the frequency that gives you the control to be the God of anything that you choose to observe, then yes, that's what I'm saying. I'm saying that God is viewing the intelligence, the highest form of intelligence,
Mm.
has been viewing life through you to give you existence,
Wow.
to make it all divinely right, which gives you the freedom to do anything
Right.
out of the divine expression of it. You see what I'm saying?
Right.
If
Absolutely.
that concept resonates with you at that level,
Right.
that allows you to call yourself and that feeling in you itself God, then yes, that's exactly what I said. So what I was able to discover on the mountaintop and climbing what seemed like Mount Everest in physical perception, that was the only way it could present itself. I started to recognize um, mental paths that I had placed along the way
Mm.
to remind myself of how I used to think about the world. You
Mm.
understand? And at thinking from the highest form of intelligence, my enemies became my footstool in consciousness. Woo! Because I was walking on them in the psychological stones of divinity as I
Mm.
began to climb up Jacob's ladder to the highest form of intelligence in myself,
Wow.
consciously aware of where I left off so that the form of myself could remain in existence.
Wow.
I
And
sought higher things, but loved my version of myself so much because I felt that it was divine that I staked my entire existence of my ego, my satanic version in the eyes of God. You understand? This
yeah.
is how I can present myself in its highest form and consciousness as a gift for giving my whole self to Him and
Mm.
being able to breathe deep from that consciousness. I can resurrect myself in consciousness in any form. So the unseen realm is always the highest expression of a sand in the presence of God. And
Wow.
as long as you know that there is divinity that you can connect to, that when it allows you to be seen, it's showing you through the frequency that you've told it through feeling to make yourself appear to be.
Mm.
If you only talking in form, I'm dropping nuggets, Akia. If
I,
you only talking in form,
mm.
then what you believe in concepts and form will continue to appear. You have to build the psychological world from the understanding of a grain of sand.
Mm.
You understand? Be as small as a tiny worm in the dust. You get what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Of misunderstanding so that your light can shine. And when light sees it, it brings you intelligence, and that intelligence rises itself and recreates that organism from nothingness. It gives its reason to be visible.
Wow.
When you have that reason and you hug hold to that reason, the closest thing that you see as reason in form, you you gravitate to. It becomes a magnet for the spirit with
Mm.
the highest divine expression of that spirit. You understand?
Mm.
That's what I'm saying. And that's the door that you have to start walking through to remain visible and form at the highest form of expression. You have to be God of the universe that you've created. But the bad part about that, from an ego perspective, is you will be humbled. But thankfully, you don't have to let the egotistical thoughts reign supreme as you enter into this door. You can stand on the rock of truth and allow this information to spread in your mind. You
Mm.
understand?
Yeah.
And allow it to grow all over your nervous system as if lightning has ignited out of thin air in your consciousness. And that truth is the incorruptible seed. That truth is the thirst quencher in the desert of Egypt. You see what I'm saying? It brings water where there is no life. And it gives it the taste. You see what I'm saying? That is, it's the thirst quencher is what he calls himself.
Wow.
That consciousness is the being consciousness. The Jesus Christ consciousness is the authority consciousness that says I have the authority through the law of truth to be this version of myself in the light. You see
Mm.
what I'm saying?
Yes.
So when I speak it, my level of being it is on me. At
Mm.
what level do you choose to be? So you have to be able to speak with clarity. Life gives you purpose for clarity. Hell is for what don't I like about this shit? You see what I'm saying?
Right.
All this fuck shit I don't like, man. What? Like, let me take that back to my consciousness. Let me clean that up. All right, and then it's in your cleaning up that thinking that you can do it gives you the false belief or the ego's leading again. You see what I mean? You got
Right.
to turn all responsibility over to the God in you that is running the show through feeling. And
Wow.
that feeling will vibrate in your spirit as the highest impulse for the way to go. To where now this is the world that most people are blind to. This consciousness gives you restored sight to the blind. Instantaneously, it regenerates the organism at all levels, starting with the highest level of what it perceives to be as intelligence, which is the crown chakra.
Wow.
This is how you ignite these things from the inside out. This is how you become, this is how you became. All other concepts get crowded out to the main concept. That's how you walked into life. You came in the form because you like, I'm God. Like all this has to get outside of my concepts and present itself to me in divine form.
Right.
Before me to give conscience, you hear what I'm saying? My
Hmm.
money is my attention. And
Wow.
God says in Malachi 3 and 10, bring the whole tithe to the storehouse. Now, if you were taught to misread that in a light of misunderstanding, you would think that what has power is what you are to give. So that shows you where the conscious humanity thinks the power is. So they want the money. The last shall be first. The money is the nobody wanted consciousness,
Mm.
the kingdom of heaven. Nobody sought after consciousness. You see what
Wow.
I'm saying?
Hmm.
The reason your belief system is about something, that's what you should be seeking. What makes everybody believe in something like that? That's who I want to be. You hear what I'm saying? The desire to be God is the only thing that will get you out of hell. That's the only thing that got you here on the edge of humanity.
Wow.
You
Mm.
have to become truth in all forms of expression, and you have to see yourself in a different image in the light of consciousness. How to build a house. The Bible is literally a book on how to mentally build the DNA strand. How
It's
to
a,
psychologically, like we have a podcast that we're doing, All God's Children, that talks about the decoding of scripture.
right.
It's to speak in tongues has nothing to do with me learning Spanish or Italian or anything. That could be wiped out in all of humanity. The Bible is talking about the spiritual language that it spoke to through scriptures to stay alive, in the knowing that nobody would be seeking truth when they
Mm,
get to the edge of humanity.
mm.
Because in the edge of humanity, it gives you the illusion that you can become God on the edge of humanity. So it tells you in scripture to seek first the kingdom of heaven. Then when you reach inside, the reason that you are able to see so many amazing things the way you're able to see them is because of the consciousness that made you want to be it. It made you want to touch it. It made you want to feel it. Like, what is this? Right? All right.
So,
So go ahead.
so I have a question because I know you said in your podcast or in your group, all God's children, in the group that you have set up, you have a podcast that you have. How often is that podcast? Because I'm in that group and I would love to know, be a part of the podcast. And I also wanted to just tell
Yeah.
everyone,
So,
well, really quick,
oh, go
Bryan, I
ahead.
want
Go ahead.
to
Go and
tell
speak,
everyone
girl.
that
Go.
Bryan actually wrote a book. It's called The Bible, Basic Instructions Before Leaving Earth. And I actually keep this book with me everywhere I go, every plane trip I go on, anytime. It's always with me.
It's
And I pick
proof.
it up, and I pick it up and just do my best to have a better understanding of self and of life and of just the interpretation of how you view life through, through the way that you perceive the Bible. And I know you
Oh,
mentioned
yeah.
the Bible being what is the word you use? You said it's repeat what you
It's
said, the Bible.
a psychological history book of your soul. A psychological history book of your soul in the concepts of humanity.
Mm,
It's you see what I'm saying? As
wow.
you walk through consciousness, it gives you the ability to form consciousness from a concept of truth. But and so Jesus being the main character, everybody seeks to be a concept, right?
Mhm.
But who wants to be the main character? That consciousness comes to the individual who truly seeks its reason for being, to be the divine form of expression at all times when it's thought of, to be the body of truth that everybody eats from, because your expressions of self, it has always been based on truth. You see what I'm
Right.
saying? You didn't become a slave to concept. So the divine expression of yourself, the body is ate through consciousness unconsciously. You see what I'm
Mm,
saying? Why does certain information resonate so much right now when all other concepts have been seen through your observance? Why are you in this moment in time eating from this consciousness?
right.
You have to think about the control that got you here in this moment, space, and time of consciousness. How is your focus still eating? You see what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm.
That's how deep truth goes. With the right intentions, it's allowed to reproduce itself.
Wow.
And knowing that we are a body of consciousness, we are eternal, and we allow that Christ consciousness to consume us with the right form of thinking, and it gives life to humanity only when humanity has humbled itself and realized that all of the false concepts that you chased about being,
Mm,
there's a consciousness that thinks higher of you,
mm,
regardless of any window that you saw yourself through. Just
right.
come to me in the highest form of yourself that you
Mm,
can appear to be. You
mm,
understand? In
yeah.
any way that you thought, anything that you thought, I see it through the eyes of divinity so that we can keep walking through the door of consciousness together. You see what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm.
I see people through the eyes of intention. Your reason for being has
Right.
led you into false concepts. False concepts don't have that type of power. You've had the power the whole time, and it's through your observation how the God consciousness knows how to be in all forms of humanity. You see what I'm saying?
Right.
This digs really deep. And then when you take a deep breath and you breathe from it, it explodes levels and psychological mountains of information from the inside out. And you can just feel walls of information exploding at the core of intention.
Mm.
And it just feels so good and it becomes electric. And that given to true intentions in its full expression of power gives it control.
Got
And
it.
that control has been sprinkled across humanity in different forms of itself before the Christ consciousness returned. And it's been observing the whole time, right?
Right.
But at this level, who's true to the root of intentions for whatever way they chose to express themselves? That's the truth. And that's going to be the sun that dominates in Revelation for the next 1,000 years. The sun of truth.
Mm.
It's all a biblical story about walking through life, observing what God is seeing through the eyes of you in the light of the sun. At night is watching through the moon, right? But not
Right.
only through the moon, but through all of humanity, all forms of intelligence. You understand? You
Right.
represent the fluid form of self. And the more fluid you are while observing consciousness, you understand? The
Mm-hmm.
more you become like the waiting water that controls it by the light, which is why you want to clean up your lens with divine thinking, only seeing yourself as God, adjusting your focus to zoom in on intelligence,
Mm.
and then going back to releasing the cause for creation in the thought of it being at the smallest form and exploding at the level of consciousness that feels relief. Gets you past barriers that your conscious attention was paying attention to, but it allows your spirit to continue to fly at levels of consciousness that you weren't able to get to through psychological barriers that constricted you from thinking. You see it? It's
Psychological
very
barriers
deep.
constricted you from thinking.
Right.
Wow. I so I know before we had started this, I said, Bryan, and just so you guys know, Bryan does not smoke weed. He doesn't do any of that crate. He doesn't do
Right.
any of that. This is him and his essence. And he is
Right.
speaking on how he interprets the Bible. And I
And let
think
me
it's
say this. Let me say this though. I want to clean this up. I have smoked before. First time I smoked was at the age of 33.
okay.
And I was in Jamaica. I went to where it was legal because I was like, oh my God, it's going to be illegal. I don't want to do. And I smoked for the first time in Jamaica. I thought it was going to be the best weed because everybody was like, man, you got to. And it
Right.
didn't do anything for me, which told me that I was light years past the level of consciousness that this stuff was getting people to.
Mm.
But I'm like, dang, they still seeking it through substance. Ooh, come on. They still seeking it through substance. It makes
Mm.
me want to dig deeper. What else are they giving credit to being cause? Ooh, to be cause
Mm.
is the highest level of being that you can be. So
Mm.
what else are they giving power to being cause?
Mm.
I can eat this because. I can believe this because. You see what I mean? If they're not
Right.
giving their authority to the true reason for being cause, then what they observing will be dominated. You see what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Through the eyes of their perception. So to enter in something for the wrong reason is to enter into a doorway to see yourself get defeated by how
Mm.
you view yourself,
Mm.
which is also the drive for living. Your will to win as a concept has to remain rooted in truth
Mm.
for it to be dug up from the grave of psychological death and to live forever as Jesus said we would when
Mm.
we walk through the doorways of heaven. You understand? We
So
will remain in
I
the
don't,
most divine concept of ourselves.
and
However, we saw ourselves as, huh?
my apologies for cutting you off. I wanted to ask you something, but I don't know if I should ask you this, but I feel like I should ask you this. When people say, because I wasn't raised in the church, I wasn't raised with the Bible, and I don't want to, but when people say that Jesus is coming, do you feel, and based on what you're saying and based on what I feel, he is already here because he is within us. And so it's an awakening
Right.
between all
I
people.
believe that Jesus has been here through my observation the whole time. You understand what I'm trying to tell you? And the things that's being remembered through my eyes are in my level of thinking. Let me say this with pure clarity.
Right.
Thinking from the right intentions. Through my level of thinking, the
Mm,
truth has to remain that my reason for being and my cause for living is through the authority of assuming myself to be a divine concept of myself. Merges the concept with my emotions for being it. And when I look through the eyes of the window of being,
mm,
my desire for being the divine concept of myself chooses to exist more than anything else. You understand what I'm saying?
right.
And that becomes my reason for living. You understand? No matter how deep the enemy of doubt tries to strangle this confidence, you understand?
Right.
I can breathe deeper than any being that can breathe. You understand?
Right.
I can go into depths that anything is scared to going into. Because if fear is the only doorway to get to me, my level of confidence, psychological fear, I
Mm,
know who I am in the form of being. According to scripture decoded, Jesus, the name Jesus, is the authority to assume yourself to be a divine being. It's
mm,
the psychological eyes of perception that looks through all windows of life that allows you to remain to exist as you pass over through the waters of consciousness with the blood shed of your highest form of yourself being seen through the eyes of expression. You pass through the waters into a new state of consciousness about your divine self. On any track that you choose to remain conscious of being it on. And that level of you being it from the core of being it allows it to appear in any light at any given moment that you choose to express yourself in as yourself of being that way. Come on now. You can
mm,
only be seen the eyes that you choose to see yourself in the psychological lights of consciousness. You form the light, Isaiah 45:7. I form the light. I know how to do that in my consciousness. I create the darkness. If I don't look at it, it's dark.
mm,
You see what I'm
mm.
saying?
Yeah.
So its evil intentions has to exist before me. You see what I'm saying?
Right.
But they express themselves in the highest form of divinity at all times, unconsciously and consciously. It knows this. That
Wow.
form of intelligence knows this. Disguised at the lowest level of what it could be in the form that it's in. Everybody knows the story from the bottom to the top.
Right.
You see what I'm saying? We all come from the mud of dust. Get it wet a
Right.
little bit. It don't know how to be without becoming mud. Somebody
Mm,
never, for the humanity to get as far away from agriculture as it has gotten, that shows you the very essence of abundance. What's in this soil that's creating the life that we're perceiving to be through form? What? What's giving this meaning to be this belief system to me? That's how far I dig for the truth.
mm.
And it must resonate on all levels for me to go deep like that. You see
Mm.
what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm.
So the consciousness of being conscious of itself must come to me when I seek the kingdom of heaven. It allows me the authority to exist and continue to be in the desire to see how it's being.
Wow.
That holds my attention more than anything in consciousness. As I turn my back to humanity, I chose to remember it in a divine eye. So that when I look back at humanity, when I come back to it through the eyes of eternity, I can remember all of humanity the way it was desired to be remembered when I observe it. Come on now. Now
Wow.
we can live through all walks of hell
Right.
through the eyes of consciousness. You can choose to remain unconscious to this truth and walk through life ignorant to it, becoming false concepts and forgetting your truth. You get what I'm saying? Choosing to leave humanity. You know, all of the weaker forms of expressions express the forms of expression that it understands to cease to exist.
Mm-hmm.
So when misunderstanding is rampant, the direction of misunderstanding follows.
When
Meaning,
misunderstanding is reverent, say that again.
when misunderstanding is referenced,
Mm-hmm.
the intentions for misunderstanding has a current too. It comes alive too, which means that when your attention is electric. When you
Mm.
turn your attention to a situation and you view it through the eyes of a false concept, this shows you how deep psychologically buried humanity is in consciousness.
Mm.
When you view it through the eyes of false concepts, the current of concepts flows to the light that you're giving off in eternity
Mm.
for the reason of it being. So when you're viewing things for the reasons of truth, the reasons for your existence, it causes the abundance. That's why that book is holy words given to me as I was like, imagine being knocked out unconscious and you
Mm-hmm.
take control of your ship and parts of your spiritual body. Think of your body as Christ, because that's what you allows you to exist. And parts of your spiritual body are waking up. And you've been knocked unconscious and you're regaining control by hearing this information, bust through psychological mountains and all this stuff. Now you see your body begin to regenerate itself
Mm.
with the water of life that gives it reason to live. This is the reason for living as it fills you back up. Now your body represents earth. You are under the soil. Your feeling represents the soil. It's not the soil nor the worm that gives those things intelligence for something to be caused. It's the intelligence in the invisibleness that is creating what I'm looking at its highest form that gives it. So I got to speak to it
Mm.
with my divine version of expression in the moment of right now.
Mm.
Even if I wasn't able to see myself, my words are charged with prospering power. You hear what I'm saying? I ripple at the core of beliefs and I can snatch a stream of truth to shake away all of the psychological dust of misunderstanding about self and walk as a free spirit. You see what I'm saying?
Wow.
Released to express myself in the most divine form of myself, which Bible calls that Jesus Christ.
Wow.
Right now, this observation calls that Bryan, right? The identity of that consciousness is in all of us. Us
Mm.
choosing to claim that consciousness. Can you take what comes with the ego of that consciousness? Are you willing to sacrifice your entire existence on the belief of that consciousness, even in the darkness of Egypt of misunderstanding in your mind? You
Wow.
out there in the wilderness by yourself, the only one thinking like this, calling for help. The only thing that you're forced to turn to is truth. What's the reason for me doing all this? Why did I want to be this version of myself?
Mm,
Man, I wanted the feeling that came with it. This is when you begin to identify your reason for being. I wanted the feeling that came with the perception that was presented to me about myself that would remain that feeling if I attained it.
mm,
But the closer I got to the image, the less the feeling went away because I left the feeling of it behind, the full, complete feeling of it. The feeling was the spark. Ooh,
mm,
the spiritual manna, the spiritual manna was the rain of ideas from heaven.
mm,
As I stepped out into this wilderness, away from the waters of misunderstanding, you get what I'm saying? It
mm,
tells me in scripture that I'm gonna win every time, either in the beginning of my genealogy, thinking about this, or
mm.
at the end. So might as well go and let me win this psychological race. You see what I'm saying?
Right.
Go and let me be the divine expression of myself that I choose to be in the moment of now at all times. Learn how to speak with definite clarity so that you don't get dropped off by consciousness anywhere.
Mm,
You see what I'm saying? Oh,
right.
you chase after things, you get dropped off anywhere in the land of the wilderness in Egypt. We're existing through consciousness. Our remembrance of that fills up our body, and we no longer have to try to fit in. We can release our whole selves the way we look, and then we begin to feel the current that we're in. Us
Mm,
trying to be a concept of ourselves allows us to release from that, let ourselves be who we desire to be in all moments,
wow.
but appear to be the divine concept. And that sun in you begins to get life again. It begins to radiate. You begins to see the cause of creation as your perception, being imaged with a strong image from that core belief system into the eyes of your consciousness. It's presenting itself in the light. I form the light and create the darkness. Meaning, like, wherever I shed my attention on about myself and psychological understanding allows me to see myself in this most divine expression. Don't allow the way you see yourself in form to be yourself.
Mm,
Know that you can change what you give psychological attention to at all times. And in the moment of now, you will always be that as long as you see yourself that way psychologically. You got to build a psychological aspect of yourself at its most divine expression of form in the now that you present yourself. Does that make sense?
it makes sense. It's a lot, and
Yeah.
I'm glad that we have a replay because the knowledge that you drop is so profound that it's so deep that like
Yeah.
said, it's deep. And I want to thank everybody for tuning in. We've got Maji Dupree, Don Jacobs, Mark Tooks, Glenn Glasper, McKeith, and Glenn just said that's deep.
What up? What up? What up? It's your boy B. Hey, when you gain consciousness of this,
Yes.
if you do like use stimulants to get high or other things as cause or reasons to reach this consciousness, you will find that you become less and less addicted to concepts and you become more addicted to the level of thinking that is
Mm,
the reason for you choosing addictions. You see what I'm saying? The concept cleans up. The consciousness is at a higher level. So anything that's believed to self-destruct you, you can release from it. Take the cause away from it being away from your consciousness. Oh, I love this stuff. Take the call. This what you're doing with stuff. You ripping his power away from it. Give me my power back.
right.
You see what I'm saying?
Hmm.
That false concept, you made me believe that. Look at you. But in the knowledge of it, it frees you. You had to be that version of yourself to get to the core root of your thinking.
Wow.
Why are you chasing the things that is making you do? Obviously, false concepts end in things that make you mentally think of death. You understand?
Wow.
Remain in a truthful way of thinking, no matter how far your mind chooses to dig. And
Mm,
whenever you choose to allow your mind to think about God at the corest level of your being and explode in that thinking. That will allow your consciousness to resonate anywhere you choose to shoot the star. You see what I'm saying? Shoot
Mhm.
it anywhere. There's infinite levels. In
So,
my Father's house, there are many mansions. If it were not so, I would have told you. I, the consciousness of this, will go in the heavenly planes of psychological awareness and prepare a place for you. So that where I am in consciousness, wherever that may be, I'll return again to the level of consciousness that you remembered me at and receive you unto me in full conscious awareness that where I am, there ye may be also. So that's a scripture that tells you how to direct your psychological shooting stars. You remain consciousness on how to shoot yourself across space consciously and
mm,
not just go land anywhere. You walk down with divine grace, with full knowledge of your being, and you walk with peace and grace. You just follow the current and feel it. And it's going to make you appear to be the full version of yourself that you chose to be in that moment. And you stand on holy ground in consciousness and you can feel his presence as you psychologically walk through it on the inside, building the mountains that this confidence will think from. You see what I'm saying? Becoming the rock of truth. The
mm,
purpose for existing is to see the purest level of this consciousness exist.
wow.
That's the psychological stone that anything can be built on to recreate itself.
Wow.
At that level of consciousness alone allows you to be anywhere you choose to be. Takes the power back to life, and anything that you choose to think about life, it takes the power back from it.
Wow.
Christ's consciousness stripped death of its power with levels of intelligence. Light represents intelligence. Day in the Bible represents degrees of unfolding intelligence. In the moment of now, there is no time. In your consciousness, you was not aware of time until I brought your consciousness to time. You see what I'm saying?
Wow.
So my words give the authority to pass all of your psychological barriers about a concept. And if my words reach your soul of consciousness, I know how to ignite. When I speak, it vibrates in every form of living
Mm,
because it's truth. You see what I'm saying?
wow.
So when my frequency returns in consciousness, everything seeks the information that draws them to it. And their level of consciousness and being moves them through a path of consciousness that they're unaware of in consciousness that's drawing them to the truth about this consciousness, which is the purpose for being. Be whatever you want to be in this most divine expression.
Wow.
And your light will get to shine forever. You see what I'm saying? You go into worlds of misunderstanding to learn different ways to be at this most divine level of being. Anything that man doesn't understand, they call it wrong. Put a label on it, and it's because that feeling rising up. Well, you ever thought that feeling is your reason for existing? If that feeling rises up, it's telling you you need to become something else right now to
Mm,
get back to this feeling that feels the highest version of itself. Do you want to remain in the feeling, or do you just want it to be released orgasmically in a level of your conscious awareness?
wow.
Don't be Judas in that area when you receive this light of consciousness. Don't let that be the reason that the rest of your body doesn't get drenched with this water. Let this consciousness go to all levels of your chakras and reach the Christ consciousness, the crown of intelligence that knows everything about that it knows. You see what I'm saying? And release the root of that consciousness from that level of thinking. You see what I'm saying?
Wow.
And explode all levels of misunderstanding about scriptures. Judas betrayed the body of Christ,
Mm,
the body of Christ that you have become aware of. This nigga will always go sell it away for money and silver and the highest form of psychological concepts That would release. Soon as you get some good information, you
Right.
finna go turn it into physical money, right? You become an
Right.
energy alchemist, and it's revealed your true expression.
Mm,
That level of consciousness has its own built-in doorway.
mm,
The more you seek, money has wrapped in at levels of high consciousness. You see the cause higher when you stop seeing that, wait a minute, money didn't produce the idea. My idea brought the money. Now you reverse the roles of power. Oh, shoot, matter becomes a magnet to the spirit of feeling. So when I psychologically ground the root in this feeling of consciousness, it vibrates on all levels of truth. I explode through consciousness, flying through space, time, and reality of all beliefs. And I become who I choose to be right now in this very moment, right? You start speaking with confidence that's not made up to the spirit. It's standing on truth of consciousness at all levels, at the root of any level of understanding, at the root of darkness.
mm,
You see what I'm saying? The Bible begins to unlock its mysteries, the spiritual language that it was written in with the intentions of it. It begins to unlock it in your mind of consciousness, releasing all of the divine gifts that you laid up for yourself in consciousness. All of the words in that book begin to make spiritual sense to you when you're thinking from the invisible realm to control that feeling down inside of you. You see what I'm saying? When you think about bags of money being psychologically things that you've laid up there and you grab them in your consciousness, that consciousness and the feeling that it thinks from allows it to express itself because you think with everything in you as you breathe from this consciousness.
mm,
You see what I'm saying? Every thought about anything that was thought from of this level of consciousness, it overrides and allows my focus to go in on building and becoming this truth at all levels of being.
mm.
That feels so refreshing to my spirit. You see what I'm saying? And so here's the thing. The more I speak and do podcasts like this,
Mhm,
it's like the more I get to drink. You get what I'm saying? My body
mm,
has thirsted for higher levels of truth. That's what it means to consciously go on this journey. So I climbed Mount Everest, obviously, what their perception of Mount Everest is. And I got the golden ticket. I consciously have the reason for being. I have the form, Albert Einstein came up with the formula for E equals MC squared. He discovered the formula for how to create form, the intelligence of form.
mm,
With this consciousness, I have the consciousness of the intelligence of E in the E equals MC squared. I
mm.
have the intelligence in me of how to be E that creates the form. He said, checkmate, baby. When
Wow.
forms doubt of form being this being the reason for its existence, its very nature to try to penetrate against the truth of that allows me to be. The attention that becomes in desiring against that belief system pulls that consciousness to the truth. You see what I'm saying?
Wow.
Like gaining consciousness of that, the core belief of that overrules all levels of consciousness. You
Gaining
see what I'm saying?
consciousness of that overrules all levels of consciousness.
Because all levels of current consciousness is your level of consciousness.
It's your level of consciousness.
In vibration, what can you psychologically stand on in confidence that goes against this? Nothing. It bypasses all psychological foundations that you've built in your mind and it busts through layers with light of intelligence.
Mm,
Like, this is the only thing that makes sense. You see
wow.
what I'm saying?
Hmm.
Out of everything that I've done and my reason for doing everything, starting and stopping and not being able to figure myself out for whatever reason,
Hmm.
it was to discover this level of myself.
Wow.
It's like at any level of yourself when you hear the words that's being spoken will drench the water that the psychological ground that you've been walking through thirsts for.
Mm.
It's a drip, but
Right.
in abundance. Like, you
Mm.
know, it feels good all over. It does.
And
And it's true.
Cynthia Bragg said, vibrations and faith. That was her comment, vibrations and faith.
Vibrations and faith. I can feel the frequency and the intentions of the purity of the word. See, I accept words very differently now. They go
Vibration.
through the eyes of analytical intentions.
Wow.
You see what I'm saying?
Wow.
So I pierce through the light of all intentions, and they have to remain to me in the light of truth.
Wow.
You see what I'm saying? So I can dig through any spirit that is falsely presenting itself.
Wow.
You see what I'm saying?
Wow. So I have a
I
question,
form the
Brian.
light.
So I have,
The Bible is a book about you reading the story of your soul. It is the last thing in form that most people were paying attention to. Everybody wanted to preach the Bible, but they didn't know the Bible. The Bible is light. I need to know what this saying so that when I start reading it, I don't go to sleep on it. You
right,
understand what I'm saying? If
right.
you pick up that book and you go to sleep on it, that tells you the level of consciousness that you eat from.
Mm.
You see what I'm saying? Come on now, it's your food. It's your food. Are you taking big bites, big gulps? It's your food. The further away from truth you get, the less that plank you walked out on becomes able to be stood on. This
Wow.
is the boat. Christ said, cast your nets on the right side of consciousness, the
Mm.
consciousness of you that feels its existence.
Mm.
You can feel a bigger boat of fish now when you grab that feeling. It's very big. As deep as you can feel in your body, where you're going against something represents pain in your body. Where you find the impulse, ignite the truth. It'll release barriers that masseuse people can't break through.
Mm.
And I went through a level of getting massages every day. And
I,
you witnessed that.
yeah.
And there were certain levels that they just couldn't touch. That
Right.
meant that the architecture of creation knew something about me that only he could fix, that would give me levels of truth and this confidence that, wait a minute, I done did all of the high places of thinking. I done did everything, and I understand that if she can't touch this and she's been a great masseuse all this time, then I'm giving her too much cause to my way of
Mm.
feeling. You see what I mean?
Yeah.
Detachment from humanity is cutting yourself off from things that you feel you need just to see where your addiction is for the discovery of power, so that when I have power, I can commit to a concept of you. And the
Mm.
truth of the concept that I have of you will reign supreme. I agree with your spirit that it will always be in a divine way. You understand?
Wow.
In the divine way that we meet, it will always be in the most divine expression. And that allows me, in the truth of that presence, to pierce through any psychological blocks. And then I ignite in the brain intentionally with my intentions. But what I'm saying is, I consciously taught this with all of the right intentions. When you
Mm.
become aware of this and you see what level of it, of the mountain that I was looking at it from,
Mm.
what I could have done with this information. But I chose to remain faithful to the higher form of thinking while in the mountain, the place of the mountain, because that level of understanding, any false way you present yourself
Mm.
that you're appearing to be, will be exposed when you stand in the light of consciousness of this.
Mm.
You will carry it as weight that you can no longer carry on your spirit consciously. Like, how do I release the bags of consciousness of being on this level? I need them to be as light as I was coming into it. You see what I'm saying?
Right.
That's where I'm ready to stand in this psychological soil.
So,
And then I be from that moment.
so I have a question, Brian. I know that you were raised in the church, like your father, he was a preacher, correct?
He was a preacher. Yeah.
He is a preacher, correct? Now, currently?
No, he was a preacher. He got kicked out of the church.
Oh no. So
Yeah,
I
my dad, he was teaching like truth about
mm,
tithes. Like tithes doesn't represent money.
mm,
And we stood on that. Like I've never tithed in all of my levels of increase.
mm,
I'm being 100 with you. In the form of expression of tithes, the way humanity was taught, breaking past all belief barriers, standing on truth, that cannot be the cause of my expression for wealth. You
mm,
understand that? I
right.
take the power away from that belief system, standing in my consciousness.
Mm,
You understand what I'm saying? So
right.
now, and I ignite on all levels of truth with that consciousness. My dad didn't have nothing to stand on, so his image of being a preacher ceased to exist. He wasn't
Mm,
standing on truth when he said that concept,
mm.
but he
So
was representing truth in that concept, so he is allowed to be rethought of in that concept. You see what I'm saying?
right.
And now the light of his consciousness still lives. This is the truth that he was saying. The
Mm,
only thing that I can pay right now is my attention to
right.
anything being. My conscious attention of it becomes so focused to where I become aware of it. That's my
Right.
wealth. And now when I know where my wealth is, I know that I am the reason for life existing. My entire purpose of being rests in that. I let my whole spirit go in that. You understand what I'm saying?
Right. So the reason why I asked that question is for somebody like myself who was not raised in interpreting, understanding the Bible, because I open the book and I want to understand it. And I'm like, God, please, I want to understand it, like, Lord, I want to understand. So for someone who's not raised in it, what would you say to them? Because you say it's an interpretation of the spirit. I mean, I guess with meditation, how did you get to this point? I guess is my question. Did you start off this way with interpreting it that way? What would you say to someone who wants
So
to?
there's a lot of concepts that can go with being this expression of self that I can give credit to.
Right.
But the ultimate concept that I could give with all of the right intentions being released from it
Mm,
is to be me
desire.
in expression. And what I'm saying is psychologically in all truths of expression. That's what I mean. The body of consciousness that I speak from is who I am. The
Mm,
form of expression that you see me is who I'm representing myself as in form of who requested this consciousness.
mm,
You understand what I'm saying?
yeah.
This form has no power without this consciousness.
Mm,
You see what I'm saying?
right.
And it is fully aware of being this form. So when I say be me, what I'm saying is now the spiritual interpretations of psychological. See, our podcast, what we're going to be doing is decoding scripture like the question. What I want is all of the stories that I bypassed not knowing the meaning of.
Mm-hmm.
When I got hold of this truth, I just kept going deeper because okay, that was one of my selfish egotistical gains. I want to decode this. So once I passed by that, I kept going as well. So now I get a chance as I meet people, I
Mm-hmm.
get to look through life where the harvest is plenty, but the laborers are few. There's low forms of intelligence operating in form at this level of consciousness.
Mm,
So as I walk around and people ask me what do we do next for the money? The money is to walk in consciousness. You just walked on the streets of gold. You were just gold itself in consciousness, a speck. You see what I'm saying?
mm,
Now this consciousness has the ability to make you appear in any form of gold that it appears to be in consciousness. You see what I'm saying?
wow.
That's the level of consciousness that you have. So you stop giving credit to form, and form, woo, will appear to be itself in the consciousness that it chooses to express itself in the highest form. Meaning, right now, you are walking through the streets of gold. This is the highest form of consciousness that consciousness is aware of being in your presence.
Mm.
Everything around you is at the highest level of consciousness. Damn. Is at the highest level of consciousness.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's
Yeah.
amazing. You are a
I know, right?
mess.
Huh?
I said, you're a mess. But yeah, so I mean, that is some powerful stuff, Bryan. And thank you. I want to thank you again for taking the time out of your afternoon to share your wisdom, for bringing just your wisdom, because it's important for the world to know. And just the fact that you've taken the time to break down and understand how you interpret the Bible and how other people can, and how others can. I,
Right.
I thank you for that, because for someone who has always had a desire to understand it, it makes it easier, especially when you put it in the terms of spirituality and consciousness and awareness and life and the unknown and things like that. So for that, I thank you truly.
The consciousness of the Bible takes ownership, a key. Like once you become aware of how to read it, you spiritually interpretate the intentions. That means you are dwelling in the high places of consciousness. You're dwelling in the high places of God. Consciousness is everywhere.
Mm,
So there's dark places where light hasn't begun to exist yet. That's space,
right,
right? That's represented in what we see as space. And so there's levels of consciousness where there's cluster of clouds. The
right.
thing is, in consciousness, we are space travelers. And what I'm saying is, you say, what can a person do to get to this level of enlightenment? My advice would be this is my advice as I was passing through time in the consciousness of people.
Mm.
Hey, drop what I was about to curse. Drop what y'all doing.
You can speak
Like
freely.
start eating from this.
I said, speak freely.
Right. Stop what you're doing. Start eating from this consciousness. I get on the highest form of expression in the realm where hundreds of thousands of people are the core of real estate in their areas, right?
Mhm.
And I teach from this consciousness, igniting a new reason to cause. And from this same consciousness, I want you to understand this. I vibrate as that seed in all of the minds that gave me attention. They all think from the frequency that I exist on because I went in with true intentions.
Mm.
Sean makes fun of me walking on stage. I ain't got no speech, Sean. Like I ain't got no
There.
PowerPoint.
That was a powerful moment. I was there. That was the day
Yeah,
I met you.
yeah.
Yeah.
Right. And I ain't have no speech. I ain't have nothing wrote like ready like that. I was like, man, oh yeah, let me write a couple words. And I get up there and I spoke from the soul of intention.
Mm,
Like, hey, look, these people are in front of me because their spirit unconsciously requested to be here if they ever lost consciousness. That's how I look at my being. You understand what I'm saying?
mm,
If they ever lost consciousness, then show these events as an expression so that I can remember a specific consciousness that I ate from, that I release my spirit to
mm,
in a different way. You see what I'm saying?
mhm,
Everything that I express now will regain consciousness of itself everywhere that I'm conscious of being, which is existence in my realm of consciousness. You understand what I'm saying?
mm.
So when you speak from a higher realm, you dominate man-made consciousness.
Right.
When you speak as the expression of the higher realm, that's your authority to be Jesus. That's your authority to be whomever you assume yourself to be in divine expression. That's what the scriptures mean. I speak from the authority to be the most divine expression of myself in the eternal now. And that's who I appear to be to you right now. How you perceive me with all of my psychological perceptions, I put on the breastplate of salvation, shining my eyes on the consciousness of myself and form that I choose to appear as. You understand what I'm saying? That's
Mm,
what stands in the light of the world of misunderstanding, which is why I can continue to penetrate because I stand for something bigger than myself and form.
Mm.
Man, that's powerful, dog. Like that right there.
So, and that is, thank you for that, Bryan, truly. With all of that being said, what is your desire for yourself as Bryan Harris on, like, what is your goals with the knowledge for people? And I know you have all God's children, which is phenomenal.
Yeah.
Would you say that
The,
should
the
enlighten us into?
yeah, the intentions for all God's children was to do specific kingdom business. Like
Yeah.
it's obvious at this point that the wealth of information has created a lot of the perceived wealth in all of current consciousness right now.
Right.
It was through a specific state of consciousness. It becomes very obvious,
Right.
right? And so when that's understood, then I hold all divine concepts in that light and say, I would rather teach you what you are unaware of, but you know exist
Mm,
for free.
mm,
Just give me the highest divine expression of yourself and form
right.
as I graze through your consciousness.
Right.
You see what I'm saying?
Yeah.
On all levels of your reason for being,
Mm,
I'm aware.
mm,
So whatever that looks like in highest form of yourself that will remain in a specific feeling, let that be.
mm,
And that means that a level of consciousness takes care of itself. When it speaks what it's in need of, it's already there.
right.
You see what I'm saying? Like everything in consciousness knows that it doesn't have to ask for things that it wants. It
Right.
just becomes the version of itself and it's automatically known. So that leaves any reason for what is this person thinking or that person thinking. I'm thinking from truth, and by my thinking from truth, that allows me to think from the right mind right now, and it attaches you to it, and it just runs. You see what I mean? So
Right.
now you don't have to see if you protect it when you psychologically enter that consciousness. Like, oh my God, walking in fear as your light is shining. Like, what's in here?
Mm,
No, you don't have to do that. You walk in any room of consciousness with confidence, with the boldness that you breathe deep from. And from this level of being, the expression of yourself speaks and it vibrates. Even if you can't be seen, the sound is heard. You see what I'm saying? In all levels of creation, in all expressions of itself. That's who you are. Deep root. And when you know that, anybody's perception of you that is matched with your perception of self is how they will see you.
mm,
The spiritual language is the language of perception. The spiritual language, to speak in tongues, is to be able to speak any language in perception. And I can be an expression at the highest levels of expression that will speak to any spirit in the room. However, that needs to appear to be, I can speak the language to
mm,
become no thing in the room or to become the only thing in the room. At all levels of my being, I will express myself in the right form of being to speak the right language. I
wow.
speak the language that men don't speak. You see what I'm saying?
Right. Wow.
I can become what I need to be to infect the room with the right state of consciousness.
Right.
And
That's
I'm aware of that.
right.
You
Wow.
see what I'm saying? And look, I come in peace. Like a person's mind feels dominated only when it's in the room of wrong intentions. It
Wow.
feels free when it can stand on truth, because it's left its psychological foundation of truth a long time ago. You see
Wow.
what I'm saying? A long time ago in consciousness.
Wow.
And this has been an endless journey that the soul can rest in the Sabbath day of knowing the feeling and relief of joy and satisfaction that your mind can just be free and just explode in consciousness and da 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 da, Mount Everest in consciousness on all levels of the body, raining down water that drenches any thirst of information. You don't have to know why to be anymore. This consciousness speaks from the level of being.
Mm.
Being. Said, what are you? I am being
Right.
what I chose to be in consciousness. You see what I'm saying?
Right.
My full awareness of it allows me to stand in that full light of consciousness.
Wow.
Hey, right? I could talk. Hey, look, what I'm telling you is I could talk for eons. Like, as long as you have me, like, they have to cut me off. All God's children. Look, wait, this is where your promo come in, the egotistical promo. Get the book, Bible, Basic Instructions Before Leaving Earth.
No,
Turn
but
up, out and all. I got a YouTube collection of spiritual prescriptions. It's called Spiritual Prescriptions. It's on Apple and everything. I got an album out. It's called
mm,
Spiritual Prescriptions. Vitamin B, your boy B, vitamin B shots. And what it does is it plays at the level of consciousness of acceptance and beats.
mm,
And it's a doorway to enter into consciously that will allow the spirit of the urban community to accept this level of consciousness and
mm,
begin to allow this consciousness to vibrate in their spirit unconsciously. They'll
mm,
rock to the beat, and then the beat gets in their soul. Then the information has its own seed from there. That was the intentions of traditional secular music, but of course, truth speaks through all music. So the
mm.
intention is heard, and the intention that is desired to be heard in until the true intention arises. Come on, come on. I choose the perception that I choose to see myself. That's the key to life.
Mm.
Discovering that you choose how people see you.
Wow.
That reveals all of your true intentions under the light of your own assumptions. They must be expressed in their most divine form. Because they will reveal themselves. There
Wow.
is no hider of intentions. You see
Mm.
what I'm saying? So
Yeah.
now you consciously think from the level of the highest form to get things done correctly before the light comes. So now allow your mind to think in any path in the light of truth, and it'll explode barriers that you couldn't knock down with your own psychological concepts.
Wow. That's powerful stuff. That's powerful.
Man, I need a speaking platform. I need somebody to give me a speaking platform, a radio show consistently that I can just log into and just talk.
And see
I need a TV show. Huh?
with this whole quarantine stuff and with the power
I
of
need the setup. I need
you
the
just
setup,
need to
Akeem.
set up.
I need professionalism
Yeah. I mean, that's
in
so
that
important.
area.
Say that again.
I need professionalism in that area so that this conscience can be spread with the true intentions of it being free, but knowing that priceless information of true knowledge, it should come with value. So express what you perceive to be its value
Mm.
through your donations or whatever of
Right.
your highest form of expression. You see what I'm saying? So that's not even asked for. That's just I can look at any situation with this consciousness, the eyes of this consciousness, and see the solution for anything that's asked from me. You see what
Right.
I'm saying? I can use this for egotistical gains, but
Right.
I gave up my divine consciousness of my awareness of being able to be a billionaire in any form of expression. I heard Steve Jobs' last light of truth.
Mm.
His words were he was the wealthiest man in the world. So that means that if there's one that was reason for being that became it, and he was not satisfied, who am I in the version that I express myself to be in, not to realize the lesson that's learned in the words of truth that he spoke from on the mountaintop? It was something in him that was causing him to be who he is perceived to be, and he couldn't stop it from taking his life. Come on, man.
Mm.
If he had this consciousness, which he does, it will be awakened in consciousness and he will be resurrected because of his consciousness of it. But he temporarily suffered, dying consciously. But he regains consciousness in life, divine expression of himself. The consciousness that he held true to is how he finds the light. That's anybody that died. This releases you from death.
Mm.
All forms of death is simple expressions of misunderstanding. And at your level of consciousness that you ever think from, you'll begin to accept that level of expression of your consciousness about it. So, however you choose to think about death, as you think from it, you conquer it with your way of psychological perceptions.
Right.
So now this frees you from what death was perceived to be.
Mm.
Death, eternal death, is spiritual unconsciousness.
Yeah.
Spiritual unconsciousness. We could speak and teach and talk from the Bible all day long at this light, and I will continue. I remember I used to run out of energy because I wasn't knowing what I was standing on. So as I was standing in the light talking, right,
Mm-hmm.
I was still falling in the light,
Wow.
unaware of myself of being.
Wow.
You understand what I'm saying? Unaware of how I was falling until I, boom, oh, I got something solid. And my consciousness of being the solid ground. Ooh, not just standing on it. Hey, but being the ground
Mm.
before it was called ground. Hey, that gives me holy power. You understand what I'm saying? I
Wow.
become conscious of being the ground that the soul forms what you eat in.
Mm.
Tell me that. You see what I'm saying?
Wow.
Now, what you eat, it can't have a cause. You are the cause of its power. How, what was the lowest level of perception about this form of intelligence that you are introducing to your body? Conquer it. Boom. Now you ain't got to see where you thought wrong from. You destroy every level of misunderstanding with that knowledge everywhere you go.
Mm.
You see what I'm saying? You can
Right.
let your star shine as bright as you choose to. With this level of consciousness, the power that you have allows you to exist and allows you to die. Your choice.
Wow.
Only you have that power. Standing on this psychological truth keeps your eyes focused on Jesus and allows you to walk on the waters of misunderstanding. Whenever you lose focus of this consciousness, you sink. You
Wow.
keep your eyes on the light of this consciousness, and you will continue to walk on the waters of misunderstanding and truth. Man makes you think that because nobody has ever done it, it can't be done by Jesus. So they give you no perception of Jesus consciously. And your only way out is to be Jesus in expression. But they tell you to look for him in outer expression. It's the world of misunderstanding. With intentional purpose, by your desire for misunderstanding, you will desire to remain existence.
Mm.
Right?
Wow.
I know. We can appear at any level. All things will appear right at this level. You see what I'm saying? Like this,
Right.
this will keep flowing. As
Right.
long as you're in this vein, we can stay in this vein as deep as you want to go.
Right. So, so my question to you and Cynthia, Brian's information he's tagged in this live stream. You can follow him from the live stream. She wanted to know how to follow you. So, with all that is being said and how people should interpret life, what is the I guess the main desire or the main purpose is to enlighten others and just be your best version of yourself while you're here and just do your best while you're here.
Yeah, I know that may be a concept that's.
Kind of where I'm
I
at right
remember
now.
it being. I remember it being hard to understand. Like, you mean to tell me you telling me
Right.
like you just ain't paying attention. So what I'm saying is basic instructions before leaving Earth was unconsciously written, right?
Yeah. Right.
Consciously aware of the purpose it would serve. You hear what I'm saying? It was
Mm-hmm.
unconsciously written by me, but with the intentions that made me move to produce it. So it's a psychological, sane stairway to heaven.
Mm.
As the world of ignorance reveals itself, it
Mm.
can become too much to conceive all at once, and you appear to lose your mind.
Mm,
But as you remain conscious through the Passover, hey,
mm,
you remain conscious of being an expression of yourself
mm.
that you chose to stop thinking about intentionally. You plant the seeds of truth as your pathway intentionally, but you were unconscious to your intentional planning so that you can observe everything at the way it's supposed to be for
Mhm.
your eyes to shine light on it. And this knowledge and wisdom, pain becomes the psychological foundation that allows you to feel your way into existing unconsciously.
Wow.
Hey, boom, boom, boom,
Powerful stuff.
boom, boom, boom,
So,
boom.
Bryan, I want to thank you for taking the time to just express yourself and share your wisdom. And I want to know if anyone left on the live, anyone who's on the live, if they have any questions for Bryan. Um, I know I'm always asking lots of questions, and I'm really going. I appreciate you taking the time. I know Cynthia, thank you. Theo, thank you. Derek, thank you so much for joining. Nafisa, Perry, Naji, BK, thank you guys so very much for joining.
Thank you all so much for
Yes,
joining.
thank you guys so much for joining. I wanted to bring Bryan Harris on because, and it's funny, Bryan, you're my 8th guest on the show on the 8th of April, and it's 4/8 today, and you're my 8th guest. But I really wanted to
Wow.
bring you on because I'm people who inspire me and who I learn from and who I feel are just amazing humans, amazing people on this earth, where I feel other people need to know how amazing they are, and their wisdom and the things that they share. So I truly thank you, Bryan, for taking time out of your afternoon to share with the viewers and to share with me all of your fantastic wisdom on how, on how to navigate through consciousness and
Yeah,
speak truth through
that's it.
consciousness.
The
I
first
appreciate
successful
that.
traveler from space return of consciousness, traveling through the consciousness of space, the first pioneer to ever do it, and the one who safely returned consciously.
You said this is,
Yay!
you know,
Big celebration, place explodes.
and you were gone for a year, just really in search of self, and now, um,
Uh, well, I left intentionally November. I remember. Here's what happened. If you have time,
what had happened was,
what had happened was I was on. It was Thanksgiving time, and I remember the consciousness bubbling in my spirit. I remember the feeling of feeling so weak to the presence, and it
mm,
was just like telling me everything that I'm at right now. And typically, when it would come to my brain, you're taught to not be boastful or bragful, right?
mm,
But really, you're doing it to see, like, does anybody else believe in this, or is it just me, right?
mm,
With no truth of why you should do it, that desire, then you pull back from it.
mm,
So it took over me, and it made me speak to my family, and it made me tell them specifically where I'm standing at right now. Like, this is what we're gonna do, this is what we're gonna have, etc. And so
right,
now that was a mountain, a rock of belief in their consciousness to see. I don't know why I did that. So I chose to leave, and I put on my headphones as a frequency. I teach this in my courses. Put
mhm,
on my headphones, and you tune out, you bypass all frequencies that are frequencies of misunderstanding. And
mm,
I have this SoundCloud. You can find my name, Bryan Harris, on SoundCloud. And
mhm,
I laid steps. As I walked psychologically, I was aware, like, hey, something's happened. And then when my attention will be called to come back to humanity, to do something with it physically,
mm,
I'm like, I stand on this belief. And this belief says, be still and know that I am God. You
mm,
see what I'm saying? Like, now, if anybody gonna believe in this truth, I'm finna believe in this truth. I don't care
right,
how it happens. This truth has to stand. So things would appear what needed my conscious attention,
mhm,
the most extreme to all the way to the least extreme thing.
Wow.
Then it was like I was sent off into orbit, like in a belief system. I was released like an orgasm. Seriously. It was like this consciousness is real. Like, oh my God, I've just been released from Earth,
Wow.
consciously aware of Earth. So that all of the reasons for being and expression I can hold to
Wow.
whatever reason I wanted to express my face in your presence. You now know the reason by me living through this consciousness and you living as well. And so that right there became more desirable to know and not pay attention to the path of psychological barriers that form themselves in expression. You
Wow.
see what I mean? There is a deeper level of consciousness that causes things on earth to be.
Right.
And if you're walking spiritually blind and you're not where you want to be, you've ran into a tree, smack dead head on, and been knocked unconscious because you got in a car that you don't know how to drive.
Wow.
So you psychologically drive blind and you ain't got no business. You're disabled. You're crippled in the world of consciousness. And
Wow.
you've been imagining yourself to be a human. You see what I'm saying? The wrong way.
Wow.
So, however you imagine yourself in consciousness is however you will be informed. So, when you begin to imagine instantaneously, this light is revealed on this consciousness. When
Right.
you imagine yourself to be this consciousness and the desire to express itself in a divine way magnetically holds your attention to the image of being it because it feels the feeling of regaining consciousness to it. You see what I'm saying? So as you regain consciousness of it, you don't have to try to think of a true concept. Truth is going to hold your attention. The
Mm.
whole image remains conscious in your attention and it becomes the irresistible magnet, right? I am an irresistible magnet with the power to attract into myself everything that I divinely desire according to the thoughts, feelings, and mental pictures that I constantly entertain and radiate. I am the center of my universe. I
Mm.
have the power to create whatever I wish. I attract whatever I radiate. I attract whatever I choose and mentally accept. I begin choosing and mentally accepting the highest expressions in life. I began choosing and mentally accepting lavish abundance for myself and for all humankind. This is a rich and friendly universe, and I dare to accept its riches, its hospitality, and to enjoy them now. And I stake my entire being on that consciousness. I
Mm.
began to speak from the intentions of that consciousness deeper and deeper and deeper. And those were the mental bags that I left in consciousness as I knew I would regain consciousness as I entered the doorways of physical form. Now I have the power to speak to the form I am being. Listen to this, Hakia. And tell the liquid substance that I feel in feeling to part the Red Seas and allows me in consciousness to walk down as my divine expression of myself on dry land, as the version of myself and the collective consciousness of myself that I chose to be. You see
Mm.
what I'm saying? Being the form is one part of the power, but remembering your reason for being is the life pulse that gives you the reason to exist. And knowing, being consciously aware of that power allows you to be on the edge of humanity at its highest form of intelligence.
Wow. And
It's
I
deep in it.
it's deep, and I think what you were just like the prayer that you were just, and I don't know if you'd call it a prayer or say what is it, affirmation that you were
I
just
call those affirmations.
yeah, the affirmation.
But if you want to talk deeper about it from an affirmation perspective, affirmations, it's not the affirmations, it
Mhm.
is the feeling that the
Mm.
affirmations are intending to generate on
Mm.
the piano of your consciousness that plays the most harmonious tune that will resonate truth and feel good to you so you can latch hold to the feeling that it provides to be the golden string that's handed to you in consciousness for you to grab hold to remain conscious of self.
Wow.
Good, vivid images, isn't it?
It is amazing, and I'm at a point of speechless, and remembering when just like you say, reciting things over and over, hearing it in your ears, and then that level of vibration or that level of energy that your words give you to put you on the right vibration of where you need to be in a way.
Right, right.
Yeah, powerful stuff. Really important, very powerful stuff. Yes.
Yeah.
So Cynthia said, "Wow, that's deep." Yeah, I thank you, Bryan, for just taking the time out of your afternoon and sharing. Someone asked, "How do they, when it comes to God's children, how do they the podcast? How do we link on and find that?"
Is there a way that your listeners can grab? It's a Facebook group called All God's Children, but I would say the easiest way for them is to go to Facebook, add me as the picture that they saw as the image, Bryan S. Harris.
Mm-hmm.
And what I'll do, they can add. I think they can follow. I don't know if they can add still. And from there, I'll post the link on there later today
Okay.
to where we can start sharing the podcast that's been released about a year ago and the new ones that's coming. Hey, and actually, too, I really do believe that it's this level of thinking that is just to take it back to human understanding. It's this level of thinking, wave of consciousness. If you think of everything as a body of water, it's this level of thinking that's the dip in the tide that comes in with information, picks up all God's people with this consciousness, and carries them on the tide of abundant creation for the rest of eternity. You understand what I'm saying?
Wow. Yeah.
I noticed that at the last level of economy when I lost everything. Hey, these are ripples. These
Right.
are ripples in the ocean. And if I can get in the cause of the ripple, if I can become the reason for the ripple, you understand, which
Right.
allows me the authority to become truth, then I can get in the reason for the movement of consciousness at this level.
Mm.
And it allows me the opportunity to regain consciousness to exist. And in my doing that, sacrificing my level of understanding for opulence and abundance and letting go of all those things to gain consciousness at a higher level, it allows me to think of life in this way at the highest level of being. To continue to help the body of the ocean remain in consistent flow so that you can speak to the waters of consciousness. Everything that Jesus did in scripture is psychological authority that you have to do in being him in expression. You speak to things consciously as you rise from the dust of misunderstanding as a grain of sand in this consciousness. Your levels of consciousness will be expressed at form past Jesus' levels of consciousness, the higher you go in it, from a divine purpose for expression with an egotistical lust that allows you to keep going. So you get the best of both worlds. You see what I mean? Both things drive each other.
Right.
All things are right when you look at them from the eyes of truth.
Wow.
Right? I know, right? This is really good.
It's good stuff. And Cynthia said, "I feel spiritually uplifted." She says she feels
That
spiritually uplifted.
lets me know that this stuff is the hook. And it doesn't take all of that nonsense screaming and hollering to get the point across.
Right.
It's at the right frequency of understanding to where it could be digested slowly, it could
Mm.
be understood slowly, and it could be meditated on mentally. And it becomes the fountain of life that your spirit flows through.
Right.
And that's the consciousness of the body of Christ, returning back for his bride.
So before we get off, of course, the elephant in the room is this whole coronavirus stuff. What is your
Okay.
take on that? With coming with your perception of how you view life, what is your
Okay.
what is your perception of the coronavirus and everything that's happening in the world today?
I respect the authority of physical form
Mm,
to attempt to express its power over consciousness that has been given the right to exist. I express its psychological authority, which makes it appear to have power, make light run behind it. But
right,
light is always ahead of darkness. And so I also express the authority of the intelligence to know that I express the highest form of intelligence at all times of my conscious awareness.
right.
And so I am above all forms of consciousness that exist below this concept. So
Wow.
my purpose for entertaining it uses as a stepping stone to think from the consciousness and receive the frequency of all the divine fears that humans walk on in consciousness, so that my levels of expression can be felt amongst humanity to feel the intentions of truth. You see what I mean? So my reasons for acknowledging it is only to express my dominance and consciousness over it, to where on all levels of it being expressed, truth will stand if we observe light on it.
Mm,
So that allows you to just crush mountains of misunderstanding about it at a psychological awareness that's acceptable for you to think from. You
wow.
see what I'm saying?
Absolutely.
Right.
Yeah.
And now it gives you a stronger foundation of something that was appearing to be foundation, but it was actually glass to cut you.
Mm.
It
He said it.
was
Wow.
glass to cut you. They said the closer you get to the kingdom of heaven, he stands off in the secret places. He says the levels of consciousness I ain't even thinking is this in this direction. He says this in the Quran. And the levels of consciousness that don't even think in this direction. He says, I already got them. That's what Satan says. I already got them. They on lock.
Mm,
He says he waits for the people who walk in the spiritual pathways of this consciousness and
mm,
throws out fireballs of doubt, fireballs of destruction, fireballs of defeat at the level of consciousness that dares approach this level of authority in spiritual realm. What remains your reason for being up here? Woo! Come on. He comes to your consciousness and asks, what's your reason for being up here? And through the mercy of the holy feeling of this vibration, you think of yourself in the highest form that you could think of yourself in all versions of yourself, and you present yourself as a living sacrifice to that consciousness,
mm,
not even knowing why. It's one thing to do it consciously, it's another thing to have to be made to do it. You see what I'm saying?
mm.
So I think the bigger the distraction, the bigger the atomic bomb attempt has been to infect the consciousness of humanity with a virus. And when how to beat a virus, you beat a virus that was caused by artificial intelligence attempt to be more dominant than the creator of humanity.
Mm,
You beat it by becoming the highest reason for existence. So now you have the conscious knowledge that came before artificial intelligence as your guide and the conscious knowledge of artificial intelligence. And when you regain conscious of anything being in existence, your light of truth that you represent keeps you in the um, shield of protection
right.
to keep going, to keep going.
Wow.
So if that answers a person's question to enter into the room of how to speak above it, think from it in the light of this food, and you can think about it as many ways as you choose to think about it, and you will dominate it
Right.
because it's the only thing that stands in the spiritual realm. Masters, it says slaves in Corinthians, obey your masters. Slaves of consciousness to the divine consciousness, obey your masters. It was never meant for form to obey, for a spiritual divinity to obey physical form. That's a misunderstanding of divine realm. Slaves obeying their masters was meant for the supreme consciousness that enters into any mind the slave form of consciousness that goes with it has to obey. That's an eternal law. The book of the Bible is an eternal divine conversation about the laws before you step into this realm. You will consciously leave this world of form. That's true. But you can choose to live forever by knowing the spiritual interpretation of this story. You see what I'm saying? The only divine expression of being that this Bible recognizes with that authority is Jesus. You can be him in any form of divine expression that you choose to be. Your forgetfulness of expressing yourself in a divine way causes you to dwell in the land of ignorance alone. Because ain't nobody going over there but the crazy ones. But the crazy ones ignite the reason for continued existence.
Wow. Wow.
Right?
Good stuff. Wow.
I know, right?
Again,
Did I
Bryan,
over deliver? Did I over deliver on my
you
tardiness?
delivered.
On my
Everybody, I'm so grateful for you taking the time and I'm grateful I'm just grateful. It's just a blessing, and I thank you. And it's an amazing time to be alive. Like you said, it's an amazing time to be
It
alive.
really is. It
Amazing
really
time,
is.
you
The
know.
dip has come to pick us up, to ride on the surf wave of high thinking.
Yes, indeed. Well, thank you so much, Bryan, for tuning in. You all, thank you so much for tuning in. And Bryan's information will be left in the bottom of this link. I look forward to speaking with you guys all soon again on Friday. Again, this is Keys to Success, where we discuss the keys to success in life. And Bryan has dropped some bombs. I mean,
It's 100%.
you have. I appreciate you so very much for just bringing the most important knowledge that you need to have before you attack life to achieve
Oh
any
yeah.
success is the consciousness that you need in life.
Before right. Duh.
So,
Say learn in the clouds before you learn on the earth.
right. And so, thank you for that so very much. Um,
You're so welcome. It's a joy to be able to have the opportunity to express myself and to such a person as yourself that I truly thank you for being yourself. And I look forward to more connections and more growth together.
yeah,
And we can build on this rock together. This is what I represent. I represent the kingdom business of whatever we want to do in its most divine expression. That's what I represent.
yes. I love it. Thank you so very much for sharing. Alrighty,
All
everyone.
right.
Tune in soon. Bryan, you can hold right there. Thank you guys so very much for joining. It's Sue
Okay.
Sleep signing out. Have a blessed evening. Good night.